Thanks everybody for being here. Grab your seats. There will be more chances to talk, I promise. Okay, while you're getting seated, good afternoon and welcome to the 2023 RPA Assembly. We're so pleased to have you here together today. We have a terrific program, including for the first time since 1983, 40 years, all three governors, and we're going to have remarks from White House Senior Advisor Mitch Landrieu. I want to thank all the excellent panelists and speakers who joined us for 4 terrific conversations over the past week, and thank everybody in this room, all of you, for joining us today and for supporting Regional Plan Association. I got to say, we just couldn't do any of this without the tremendous support of RPA's Board of Directors, our funders and supporters, and our civic partners, and especially the public sector partners, the members of the public agencies, and they're the ones who actually have to implement the crazy ideas that we come up with. In fact, I have to say, looking at the head table and around the tables today, I see so many of our public sector partners today, and it does remind me of a story that my grandfather liked to tell. The truth is, there's a true story. My grandfather was a preacher in the rural South in the 1950s, and he spent his weeks traveling from town to town giving sermons. Each Sunday, my grandfather would preach in a new town, and then he would have dinner that evening at the house of a local community leader. I've sometimes thought that my job running RPA is similar to my grandfather's. I kind of travel from agency to agency, calling on all my friends in the public sector, sharing the gospel of regionalism and good governance. And I wonder sometimes if the folks in the public sector see me the way that those townsfolk used to look at my grandfather. He liked a story of a Sunday dinner one day when he was sitting down to the meal after he'd preached, and the hostess asked her son if he would say the blessing before they ate. And the kid looked up shyly at his mother and said he wasn't sure what blessing to say. And so his mother said, well, you can just say the grace that your father used this morning, very helpfully to him. So my grandfather liked to say, the boy closed his eyes, clasped his hands together, and called out, "Oh Lord, why does Bishop Wright have to come to my house tonight?" I feel sometimes like that's the way my friends in the public agencies think when I'm coming to visit them. RPA is a unique institution around the nation and indeed the world. There are other groups that think regionally and they work on housing, transportation, climate, and public health. Most of them are public agencies, though, MPOs or councils of government, which means they have a more direct connection to implementation, but also means that they don't have the political independence of a civic group. And none of them have the history of preparing long-range, once-in-a-generation plans for the metropolitan region's sustainable growth and equitable development. RPA's landmark regional plans have identified challenges that we need to face in coming years and made bold recommendations, unfettered by conventional political calculus, about how to overcome these challenges. The first regional plan laid out our system of highways for a growing metropolis, including the George Washington and Verrazano Narrows bridges, and it doubled the amount of preserved open space. The second regional plan opened planning to a wider constituency through Choices for 76, the video we just saw. It proposed things like Gateway National Recreation Area, and it argued for moving the Port of New York to New Jersey. The third plan championed transit investments like the 2nd Avenue subway, East Side Access, and of course Gateway. And it proposed that we pay for them by, yes, charging cars to enter the central business district. And the fourth regional plan? Well, Kate's going to talk in a minute about a lot of exciting developments in our partners. But I'd say it's too soon for us to know just what the legacy of the fourth regional plan will be. And that's the point. Our recommendations aren't intended to be completed in 4 or 8 years, but to look around the corner and think of what we need to do for the next generation. As we continue to emerge from COVID and the devastation it wrought on our communities and our way of life, there are huge challenges facing us. Our mass transit agencies need new business models and funding sources to make up for lost ridership. Vacant office space will have repercussions across our economy as tax revenues decline, and we need to reinvent our central business districts. Our housing crisis has grown substantially worse in recent years. And let's face it, we're still behind the curve on addressing climate change. But there are positive developments we can build on. For the first time in several generations, we are expanding our mass transit system. Think, in just the last 8 years, the MTA has opened the number 7 subway extension to Hudson Yards, phase 1 of the 2nd Avenue subway, Moynihan Train Hall, and most recently, the fabulous Grand Central Madison Station connecting the Long Island Railroad to East Midtown. An incredible accomplishment. And I want to congratulate in particular Jano Lieber, Jamie Torres Springer, Kathy Rinaldi, and the men and women at the MTA who made it happen. We've also rebuilt LaGuardia Airport, recently voted the best new terminal in the world, and a new Terminal A at Newark Liberty International. Many of our elected leaders are taking on the issues of housing, Governor Hochul, great to see you, and supporting reforms to allow for more accessory dwelling units, transit-oriented development, and supportive housing. Last year, Governor Hochul and Orsted broke ground on our region's first offshore wind project off the South Fork of Long Island, and all 3 states are advancing these projects as we develop over 20,000 megawatts of offshore wind energy to meet the goal of 100% zero carbon energy by 2040. At RPA, we've had a big year too, as we celebrated our centennial with an extraordinary exhibit at Grand Central Terminal's Vanderbilt Hall, and we elected a new chairman, Ray McGuire. Ray took over from Scott Reckler, a transformative chairman for us. Thank you, Scott, again for your 6 years. And Ray, I want to thank you for stepping up at this crucial moment and leading RPA into its 2nd century of research, planning, and advocacy. So now, to talk about the mission ahead, I'm thrilled to turn over the mic to my colleague, RPA's Executive Vice President, Kate Slevin. Kate, take it away.
Hi, everyone. My friend calls this the Oscars of urban planning. And boy, is she right. This crowd is just amazing, and it's so great to see so many of you here today. And welcome, Ray, to your first assembly, and obviously the governors. It's great to see you all. Tom and I wrote this speech today with ChatGPT, so I'm really hoping it's accurate, especially that story he just told. RPA has been busier this year than we ever have been before. We've led advocacy for the Gateway program, knowing that 20% of the country's economic output depends on it. And we've asked for holistic approaches to address sea level rise in the harbor right outside these windows. We've coordinated campaigns and coalitions to keep New York City's congestion pricing program moving along and to secure over $1 billion for MTA service. And congrats to all of our partners here in the civic world for making that happen and working so hard, and for Governor Hochul for your leadership in that. We worked with over 50-member coalition New York neighbors, including, and I can't name everyone, but Table 39 over there has many of them, to support Governor Hochul's ambitious proposals to address the state's housing shortage and ensure every municipality does its part. Though we were not victorious this round, there is a greater sense of urgency to fix these problems, and we aren't going to give up. Working with NRDC, We Act, and others, we've won the statewide electrification of new buildings starting in 2026 and marked the 10th anniversary of Sandy by recognizing and mapping community-based resilience plans. In New Jersey, our Fund New Jersey Transit Coalition is working with many of our partners, including New Jersey Future and others, to gain momentum in the push for steady, recurring revenue for NJ Transit. We've also been working to reduce housing segregation, increase development around transit, and help communities become more resilient. And we're excited to work with the City of Paterson on a June celebration of Great Falls National Park and our collective history together. In Connecticut, our Desegregate CT Coalition is working hard to pass Work, Live, Ride, a proposal that encourages development near transit where lower carbon lifestyles are possible. And we're also very proud to have showcased the practice of democracy there, along with the Housing Collective and the Fairfield County's Community Foundation, highlighting how and for whom democracy shows up in our built environment. RPA's work is really couched in partnership, in civic groups, in partnership with elected officials, and in our own research and lived experience of the communities we work with. This work has allowed our incredible staff to be cited over 540 times in the media since we met last year. And more people are looking at our social media, including our new Gateway video, which has been seen over 50,000 times on all of your kids' favorite social media platform, TikTok. Here are just some of the RPA findings that have helped create a steady drumbeat for change. RPA's original research has found that New York State needs to build 817 units of new housing. Sadly, almost half of the population spends 30% or more of their income on housing, a growing number, especially for Black New Yorkers and New Yorkers of color. We have tracked the over $16 billion of IIJA funds that's coming into our region, with more on the way, and in working with our partners to ensure projects align with climate and health goals. We've detailed a set of reforms that could reduce capital street projects by $1 billion a year. And working with the Housing and Community Development Network of New Jersey, highlighted the conditions renters face in the state with the worst in the nation racial wealth gap. And I know, Governor, you're working on that very hard. We detailed the link between housing insecurity and the climate crisis and found that greening just 5% of street space in central Queens could eliminate flooding and save lives. Our staff is only 30 people, so we really rely on our partners to help change the region for the better. We rely on your thought leadership, your philanthropic support, your commitment, and your passion. And as we all know, change takes time, and often we have to go back again and again to advance key projects or policies. I looked around an internal RPA meeting recently and calculated we easily had over 100 years of collective experience working on congestion pricing. But as Tom said, RPA is looking long-term, and luckily our network is a pretty stubborn bunch. This time in history is critical because many of us are saying we're going back to normal, but normal does not necessarily mean good, right, safe, or just. And we shouldn't simply accept parts of our normal. Housing instability, segregation, inequality, even the fact that it takes so long to build transit projects or walk safely down a street with your kids without a fear of being hit by a car. We need change makers like you all to help RPA challenge the status quo and work to improve the livelihoods for all of the region's residents through investments in housing, transportation, energy, and resilience. We're at a crossroads and actually a very exciting time in our nation's history. We've started an enormous transition to a green economy and seeing unprecedented investments in infrastructure, as Tom has mentioned. I hope that working together, our future will not be normal, but it will be better, more just and safer, and not just for the people in this room, but for everyone who lives in our region. Thank you very much for being here today. Now you'll see a short video clip of our fabulous virtual panels that went on throughout the week. Please enjoy your lunch, and we will be back very shortly with the program and with our wonderful governors. Thank you.
When I was a mayor, I looked at this region, not just Newark as an isolated whole, but a part of the most productive economic region in America easily, arguably in the planet.
Post-COVID, 80% of New Yorkers were receiving weekly deliveries at their home, which means lots of vehicles, people, machinery, and logistics is behind that one delivery.
You know, cargo in motion must stay in motion until it hits the consignee.
We have the densest population in the nation that we serve here, and those people aren't going anywhere. So they're still going to need to be fed and clothed and housed and have transportation.
The single most transformative project that I think we work on in the region right now is Gateway.
When we don't fill that moral and social contract of the ability of people to work and come back to vibrant neighborhoods that everyone is highlighting, it's a real threat to democracy.
We need decision makers to really put people's health and well-being before profit.
I think we can get down to this issue of like creating a healthy society, like down to a building by building level. Anyway, that's my hope.
So the more these folks are building, we put more measures in that will require them to take in consideration the environment that they're building this in.
Again, because the housing crisis is just so impactful and so big at this point, everyone has a stake in the game.
There's also an opportunity in Justice 40 to leverage climate and energy investments to do double duty in a sense.
And how do we ensure we're sending a demand signal upstream in our supply chain that we want the good stuff?
We should all come to this project from the perspective of being impatient, but impatient towards solutions that will be durable and scale.
We do not let the perfect be the enemy of the good.
It's a tough thing to do to get this mode shift going, but we need to make that ecosystem possible.
Look, you've seen New York and New Jersey, I think, jumping out and vying with each other to have the most aggressive goals.
I also think there's an ability to sort of not only support interagency coordination, maybe even just different governments, but here we are at the RPA. I think that's a great venue to support regional coordination.
For places like the tri-state area and, with the vehicle of RPA, this is a time for an industrial infrastructure plan in the service of good jobs and inclusive growth.
He was local, but he was international and cosmopolitan. He was intellectual, and he was a people person. And that wide set of interests enabled him to relate to people from all walks of life. John grew up in an ethnic neighborhood in Little Italy. From that beginning, he went to Princeton and then graduated from Yale Law School. After Yale Law School, he was part of what I would call the best and the brightest. Went out to Washington and served under Lindsay. He was a combination of so many excellent qualities, which all became important during the New York City bankruptcy when he was the first deputy mayor. And he was the key to it. It was his critical role to bring everyone together and get New York through its most perilous hour. John's most important legacy was the need for government and the private sector to work together for, in that case, survival, but for maximum benefit over time.
I was asked to talk about public-private partnerships. It's one of those neat words that defies definition.
The essence of what people can learn from John's life and experiences and accomplishments is that when you have a person who both has high horsepower intellectually and a great natural feel and interest in people, combine that with integrity and vision, and you get great results. Now, those qualities are not that easy to find. You get someone as extraordinary as John once in every generation or two. I'm not sure that people can replicate what he did, but they can certainly be guided and aspire to it. I'm particularly delighted that Susan Zuccotti, John's widow, could be with us for this event and this celebration of John's life and of our new recipient of the Zuccotti Prize.
Hi everyone, we're just gonna roll right through because we got a little late to start because there's so many of you here in the room today. So if you could just take your seat, we're gonna get started with the Zuccotti Award. Well, that works better than it works with my kids, so thank you. Howard Milstein leads a family that has been prominent in business and philanthropy for 3 generations. Known as one of New York's great real estate families, it has been a major force in the development of New York City, the region, and beyond. A leading figure in local, national, and global affairs, Howard is a trusted advisor on economic, civic, and philanthropic matters. Howard has a particular expertise in large infrastructure projects. This was demonstrated in his chairmanship of the New York State Thruway Authority, where he initiated design-build process for the replacement of the Tappan Zee Bridge. He received the Regional Plan Association's Lifetime Achievement Award in 2013 and currently chairs RPA's Committee on Critical Infrastructure and launched the Milstein Forums with RPA in 2016. Howard is also founding chairman of the merchant bank Freeburg Milstein, and an owner and builder of innovative businesses in financial services, technology, sports and entertainment, and consumer goods. And with that, I'm very honored to welcome Howard up to this stage.
Thanks, Kate. Could we run the video again that features John Zuccotti? After all, this is the John Zuccotti Award, and I think people didn't realize that it was on. So do we have the ability to run it again? He was local, but he was international and cosmopolitan. He was intellectual, and he was a people person. And that wide set of interests enabled him to relate to people from all walks of life. John grew up in an ethnic neighborhood in Little Italy. From that beginning, he went to Princeton and then graduated from Yale Law School. After Yale Law School, he was part of what I would call the best and the brightest. Went out to Washington, served under Lindsay. He was a combination of so many excellent qualities, which all became important during the New York City bankruptcy when he was the first deputy mayor. And he was the key to it. It was his critical role to bring everyone together and get New York through its most perilous hour. John's most important legacy was the need for government and the private sector to work together for, in that case, survival, but for maximum benefit over time.
I was asked to talk about public-private partnerships. It's one of those neat words that defies definition.
The essence of what people can learn from John's life and experiences and accomplishments is that when you have a person who both has high horsepower intellectually and a great natural feel and interest in people, combine that with integrity and vision, and you get great results. Now, those qualities are not that easy to find. You get someone as extraordinary as John once in every generation or two. I'm not sure that people can replicate what he did, but they can certainly be guided and aspire to it. I'm particularly delighted that Susan Zuccotti, John's widow, could be with us for this event and this celebration of John's life and of our new recipient of the Zuccotti Prize. Again, thank you, Kate, and thank you for running that tape. And thanks to all of you who are joining us today to celebrate exceptional achievements of a true visionary in urban planning and development. As many of you know, John Zuccotti was a guiding light, mentor, dear friend, and advisor to many of you here today. A savvy urbanist who is a mostly unsung hero. Today, we continue to honor his legacy with the esteemed award, which honors his lifelong passion for planning and city government. We're grateful to the Zuccotti family, and especially John's beloved wife, Susan, who's here with us, for allowing us to use John's name for RPA's highest honor. This award has always gone to distinguished individuals, but today is the first time the RPA is giving the award to a trio of exceptional leaders, the governors of New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. Each one of them, Kathy Hochul, Phil Murphy, and Ned Lamont, are worthy of the Zuccotti Award in their own right. But today's award is being given to them not for what they do separately, but for what they do and have done together. When Phil Murphy took the helm of the National Governors Association in July of last year, he captured the spirit of the alliance among today's honorees, saying, "Remember that we are partisans third, governors second, and Americans first." At a time of deep divides among states, they've worked together on regional pandemic policy and the flow of illegal guns into their states. But more to the point of the RPA's mission, they're working on building a regional clean hydrogen hub that will reduce harmful emissions and foster clean economic growth in the tri-state area. Our regional transportation system was among the hardest hit by the pandemic. But instead of slugging it out over the distribution of federal relief funding, our three governors agreed to how to apportion the money among their states. But to my mind, their most collaborative endeavor is Gateway, the most vital infrastructure project in the country. Governors Hochul and Murphy signed an MOU to trigger Phase 1 Gateway projects, the Portal North Bridge and the Hudson Tunnel. Although Ned Lamont didn't need to sign that one, he's a great supporter. He knows that those two projects will ripple through the entire Northeast, the corridor that is so vital to our nation's economy. And that's where John Zuccotti is involved. He guided RPA's work in adding PATH train access to Newark Airport, promoting redevelopment and public sector improvements around gateway communities, and perhaps most notably, investing in Trans-Hudson connections. So John would applaud your collaboration. Last year, we honored Chuck Schumer for his vital role in driving funds to our region. Now, the action happens at the state and local level, where our elected officials need to execute. In John's memory and on behalf of his widow, Susan, and the RPA, I congratulate our three great leaders who so honor John's tradition. Now I will turn the podium over to Ray McGuire, who will share some thoughts before we make the award presentation. Ray?
Actually, I'm going to introduce you. Thanks, Howard. Thank you. Sorry, I'm not Ray McGuire, but I'm going to introduce him. I'm Tom Wright, President and CEO of Regional Plan Association. Thank you, Howard, for those wonderful recollections of John Zuccotti. He was a mentor and friend to many of us. Before we present the award, though, I want to recognize just quickly all of the outstanding public servants who've joined us today. Please hold your applause, because if you don't, we'll never get through this. But we've got an incredible group of folks who are actually implementing these kinds of issues today. We have from New York State, Senator Leroy Comrie, former Governor Jim McGreevey, Connecticut Assemblywoman Eleni Kavros-DeGraw, several borough presidents. I think I saw Vito Fasella, Mark Levine, Donovan Richards here, city council members, Gail Brewer and Sylvina Brooks Powers, New Rochelle Mayor Noam Bramson. We have the federal government in the house today with Amtrak CEO Stephen Gardner and, of course, Gateway Development Commissioner CEO Chris Calori. New York State is very well represented, Secretary to the Governor Karen Keogh, ESD CEO Hope Knight, DEC Commissioner Basil Segos, DOT Commissioner Maria Therese Dominguez, MTA CEO Jano Lieber, Long Island Railroad and Metro North President Kathy Rinaldi, MTA Construction and Development President Jamie Torres Springer. I warned you it would be a long list. New York City Transit Authority President Rich Davey, OGS Commissioner Jeanette Moy, Deputy Secretaries to the Governor Navardo Lopez and James Katz, and Counsel to the Governor Liz Fine. New York City, we have First Deputy Mayor Sheena Wright, Deputy Mayor Mira Joshi, New York City DOT Commissioner Adonis Rodriguez, Manhattan Planning Director Edith Sue Chen. New Jersey, we have the Governor's Chief of Staff, George Helmy. We have New Jersey Transit's Kevin Corbett on loan from the RPA board. And from Connecticut, Chief of Staff, Johnny Dock, and Housing Commissioner Sila Mosquero Bruno. I apologize if I've missed anybody, but please thank me in joining all of these extraordinary public servants for being here today. And now to introduce our award winners, I'm extremely pleased to welcome to the stage for the first time at an RPA event, RPA's new chairman, Raymond J. McGuire. In February, Ray was elected chairman of RPA's board of directors, and in April, he became the president of Lazard, so his year is off to a roaring start. He joins RPA with 4 decades of distinguished leadership as a leader in the financial, civic, and cultural worlds. Prior to joining Lazard, Ray held a 13-year term as Citigroup's global head of corporate and investment banking, the longest tenure for this position in the history of Wall Street. Afterwards, he became the vice chairman of Citigroup and chairman of Citi's banking, capital markets, and advisory business. Previously, he was the global co-head of mergers and acquisitions at Morgan Stanley, managing director in the mergers and acquisitions group of Merrill Lynch, and one of the original members of Wasserstein Perella and Company. He has extensive experience serving on both corporate and non-for-profit boards. He is currently a member of the corporate boards of the Hess Corporation, Vornado Realty Trust, and KKR and Company, and he holds leadership positions at the American Museum of Natural History, the Black Trustee Alliance for Art Museums, the New York Public Library, the Studio Museum in Harlem, and the Whitney Museum of American Art. Through his dedication to mentoring, Ray has not only mentored hundreds of individuals, but he has also served on advisory boards for the Council of Urban Professionals, Sponsors for Educational Opportunities, and Management Leadership for Tomorrow. It's an incredible list, and we are so pleased to have Ray add to it, the chairman of Regional Plan Association. Please join me in welcoming Ray McGuire to the stage.
Thank you, Ray. All yours. Thank you, Tom. Tom did mention that he grew up in a family of preachers, and they would go around every Sunday. Well, I grew up in a long line of church-going folk. I will not do as the preacher would do in my congregation, and that is to give a sermon. That is not my intention here. But having looked around this room, it is great to see you all get this Friday afternoon in Manhattan at Pier 60. You all decided to come, dressed up and looking good. Looking good, Billy Ray. Feeling good, Lewis. Or as that inimitable philosopher of the 20th century, Sir James Brown, would say, I feel good. This is my first big public gathering as the chair of the RPA. I am honored to stand here on the shoulders of my predecessor and our distinguished and highly impactful chair, Scott Reckler. Could you all recognize Scott, please? Scott, your leadership has navigated this organization through some very narrow straits, and we arrived today with a mission at a minimum as great as it was when you led this organization. So it's an honor for me to be here in your presence, and again, deep gratitude for your leadership. So thank you. This must be the most powerful and talent rooms in the city, at least one of them. Only RPA could convene such a gathering. So as I look around this room, I want to say thank you all for being here. And while I will not do, as I am almost compelled to do, is go through an exhaustive list, Tom has already done that, but I will give a couple of shout outs. In my neighborhood, when you get the microphone in front of as many people as you do, you're obligated to give some shout outs. So I'm going to give a couple of shout outs, some of whom you have not mentioned here, Tom, but I will. Where's Kate? Kate, thank you for all that you've done here, your introduction, in sharing all the great work that RPA has done. Tom, for your vision and for your leadership. Thank you for that. We are deeply grateful. And to the superb staff and the extraordinary executive committee and board of RPA, thank you for your commitment to this organization. Indulge me, if you will, just a moment. If we could have the board of RPA please stand. Board, please stand and be acknowledged. Thank you all for your tireless service. I will point out, as Tom has already said, those leaders who are amidst us, to the most distinguished governors, all of whom I'm honored to know, two of whom I go back to college days, so it is great to see you. Who would have ever imagined that we would be where we are today? When I think of RPA and why I'm excited to be part of the organization, I am reminded of my own journey. I reflect on the opportunity to serve and to make a difference. Looking into this audience reminds me of a young man who some 40 some odd years ago, a product of the neighborhood, single mother social worker, wrong side of the tracks, deep in the neighborhood, a statistical aberration, got a best-in-class education and the opportunity to get a job and compete in the rigorous world of Wall Street. He had no plan B and had to have the will to win and a still strong resolve to never give up. And while he ascended to the heights of the private sector, he recognized that in order to realize his best self, his journey was yet to be completed. He recognized that in order for those who looked like him and those who didn't, for us to ever realize the promise of our future being better than our past, yet is somehow represented in the public arena. He recognized that there was a tremendous opportunity to bring together his private sector experience with his public sector interests. And he went through a rigorous interviewing process amongst a group of highly talented leaders and was chosen to be the chair of this organization. So I stand here today with the conviction that there is no better region in the world than this metropolitan region to capitalize on and address the most fundamental local, state, national, and yes, global challenges. There is no organization better positioned. RPA stays above parochial and divisive politics and holds true to its foundation of thorough, in-depth research, careful and meticulous planning, and strategic and effective advocacy. Our sole mission is tied to the long-term, substantive, equitable, economic, and social progress of the entire region. The passion for investing in the region, both its people and its infrastructure, is why we're gathered here today to both debate key issues, address our failures, and celebrate our successes. Our reason for being reflects the passion of John Zuccotti and his commitment to a fairer, more equitable New York region. As Howard Milstein already mentioned, this award honors both John and the individuals who have previously received this award, and I'll just name a few: President Joe Biden, MCHEC Chairman Tony Koshiev, former Deputy Mayor Alicia Glenn, former HUD Secretary Henry Cisnero, Port Authority Executive Director Rick Cotton, and Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. Now it is my distinct pleasure to introduce the three governors who will jointly receive RPA's 2023 John Zuccotti Award for Public Service. It is essential that a region that includes New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut, with 780 plus municipalities in all, not only has strong leadership, but also has a cooperative spirit and a willingness to work together toward our shared goals. And that is why we felt it more than appropriate and right to give this award to New York Governor Kathy Hochul, Connecticut Governor Ned Lamont, and New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy. In a time of unparalleled challenges, but similarly great opportunities, Each of these governors have a demonstrated track record of distinguished leadership. They are exemplary public servants. Governor Hochul, who was elected to a full term this past year, is the 57th and first female governor of New York State. She began her career in public service on her local town board before serving as Erie County Clerk and then as a member of Congress for New York's 26th Congressional District. As Lieutenant Governor from 2015 to 2021, she successfully spearheaded numerous initiatives and led the administration's economic development and job creation efforts across the way, across the state, across the boroughs, and not shied away from tackling the most difficult issues that New York State is grappling with, including building sorely needed housing, leading us to a clean energy strategy and future, and even trying to finally fix Penn Station. Governor Hochul. Governor Ned Lamont. Governor Ned Lamont was sworn into office as the 89th governor of Connecticut in 2019 and was reelected to his second term earlier this year. Ned got involved in public service shortly after college, founded a weekly newspaper in a town hit by the loss of its largest employer, and later served as a member of both the Greenwich Board of Selectmen and the Board of Estimate and Taxation before serving as chairman of the State Investment Advisory Council. Professionally, Governor Lamont started his own company, taking on the large and established giants of the telecom industry, and also volunteering as one of the most noble professionals as a teacher. We're proud of his work to increase Connecticut's housing supply through measures like legalized accessory dwelling units across the state to combat the affordability crisis. Governor Lamont. Governor Murphy took the oath of office for a second term as New Jersey's 56th governor in early 2022. He was the first Democratic governor in New Jersey to serve a second term in 44 years. He currently serves as chair of the National Governors Association and the Democratic Governors Association, the first governor to lead both organizations simultaneously. Since taking office in 2018, Governor Murphy has focused on making New Jersey more affordable and sustainable. Under his leadership, New Jersey has made strides in growing the state's economy and creating new economic opportunities while shrinking long-standing inequities and expanding critical investments, such as championing the Gateway program. Governor Murphy. Every single day, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of residents move across our region, between our states, trucks and trains, students and teachers to schools, tourists to recreate, put stress on our transportation system. And while the region grows, the housing we have struggles to keep up and remain affordable. $4,174 for a one-bedroom apartment in Manhattan. Climate threatens our coastal towns and New York City itself. These are just a few of the countless issues that cross state borders and intersect all of our lives. If there are any leaders in this country who can lead us, then they must exist in these three governors. Governors history has its eyes on you. I would now like to welcome Tom Wright and Howard Milstein to present these governors the John Zuccotti Award for Public Service. Governors Hochul, Lamont, and Murphy.
Okay, here we go. Here we go. I'll say while we're taking pictures, we're presenting the three governors a map from the second regional plan in 1968 of the Northeast Mid-Atlantic megalopolis, the mega region of the tri-state, actually the entire Northeast, a piece of the country. It's only 2% of the land area, but about 20% of the GDP. And so we're very happy to have them, these maps from the historic second regional plan to share with the governors. So join me again in thanking the governors and Ray for those wonderful remarks, and Howard. Please. Okay. We're good. I think we're good. Okay, now we're going to have a conversation with the governors. The red meat. Here, we'll take it down. Did somebody grab this? So my mic, there I go. I've got the hot mic. Governors, I want to thank you again for all being here. As I mentioned earlier, it's been 40 years since we had all three governors together at an RPA event. And I think that it's a wonderful symbol of the cooperation and the way you and your administrations have been working out tough issues. I mean, we are faced by challenges on transportation, housing, community development, resilience, and climate. But I think we all appreciate the way you've been working together, and that's what we wanted to recognize today. I'd love to have, we've got a little bit of time, talk with you about some of those issues, especially transportation, housing, climate, and anything else that we want to talk about. I think the first thing, if we'll jump right into it, I'll just say is obviously it's been a big year for transportation. I won't take any of the thunder from our keynote speaker, Mitch Landrieu, but between the IIJA and the IRA, I think it's more than $1 trillion in capital funding coming down through the nation. And so there's an extraordinary federal opportunity there, but that will rely on, obviously, the states and the regions working together. And so if I could just ask each of you in turn to talk for a moment about what your priorities on transportation are, what's the vision of what you're trying to achieve with these resources as we come out of COVID, as our transportation patterns are changing and other issues. And then also, how are you working together and collaboratively with the federal government to try and make those happen? So Governor Hochul, could I ask you to
Well, thank you for
that?
inviting me once again. We had this conversation last year, and Tom, I would love to take more time to extol how significant your influence has been on our budget, for example. I thank all of you who went up to Albany and influenced our legislators. You truly made a difference, so thank you, RPA. Thank you. I know we have some time constraints, but let me talk about transportation. Without the MTA, this region does not have the engine it needs to drive forward. So my highest priority had to be in our most recent budget was to recognize without the ridership, we have nowhere near the resources we used to rely on to fund our operating expenses. So the options were to just kick the can down the road. And I spent time in Congress, so I know that's kind of a favorite pastime, but not here in New York. So we put together a plan. I have the most brilliant people. You named many of them. I want to thank my team for coming up with a strategy to give new life and sustainability to the MTA. $1.1 billion with a payroll mobility tax, direct funding from the state, savings from the MTA. Thank you to the city for a contribution, as well as future casino proceeds, because why not? So get out there when the casino's open and start spending. You'll be helping the MTA. So first of all, getting that back on track was my highest priority. And now people can take a breath. our other priorities, and I thank Mitch Landry for being here. He's a frequent on my visit list when we go to Washington. And thank President Biden for giving all of us the resources to do what has not happened in a long time, which is invest in our nation's infrastructure. So we're very happy to spend the money. And Senator Schumer, Majority Leader, what a powerhouse we have. So you mentioned so many. You could have just given my speech. I gave yours. Gateway, big event we have with the president. $292 million to kick it all off. We're working in concert on Gateway. Let's get that done. The Interborough Express. I'm excited about this, recognizing that people work in one borough, and it's not always Manhattan is the destination. They live and work in the outer boroughs. Let's get that done. The investment in our airports is extraordinary. $30 billion between Newark, LaGuardia, and JFK. Amazing. But we just had the groundbreaking for Terminal 6 at JFK because we're not done yet. Another huge priority of ours. 2nd Avenue subway. A little more federal dollars would be helpful, Mitch. That'd be great. And I'm real excited about Penn Station. Now, there's a lot of controversy around this, and we'll figure it all out. Don't worry, I need your help. But my goal is to have a world-class station that we can all be proud of and not put our heads down in shame when we walk into that building. That's the highest priority for transportation. But working together, the partnership we have has been amazing, especially on regional projects like the Gateway Tunnel. So I want to thank New Jersey in particular and my friends Ned Lamont in Connecticut. And I will not take any longer time, but we could have a whole speech on all these great priorities. But I love to build. I love to make things happen. And so we're really on fire right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. Governor Murphy.
Hey, Tom. I know the clock is not our friend, so I'll be brief. Again, thanks to you and Ray and Scott. Ray and I go back 5,000 years, it seems. Thank you for your good words, my friend. Mitch and Cheryl Landrew are here, and they're great public servants and great Americans, and to all the distinguished folks out here. On infrastructure in New Jersey, I won't repeat a lot of what Kathy said because we've got very similar priorities. It is literally everything, everywhere, all at once for us right now. We are the most densely populated state in America. I don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican. If that's the hand you're dealt, you got to make sure you can move people and things better than any other state, and that's our commitment. It's $800 or $900 million of capital investment in NJ Transit, including renovating Newark Penn Station and a whole bunch of other stations. It is certainly gateway, including projects on both sides of the Hudson, not just the new rail tunnels. It's the PATH train adding a 9th car, which may not sound like much, but that's a big game changer for our commuters. It's, Kathy alluded to the airports. We just opened a few months ago, Terminal A, which is the most modern, one of the most modern terminals in the world. We're now, Tonio and I are already talking about the early stages of Terminal B, a new train that will take folks from one terminal to the next, but it's an unrelenting march. Again, if you're dealt the hand we're dealt in New Jersey, you have no choice but to lead on infrastructure, and that's what we're doing.
That's so great. I'm reminded as you talk, I think Ben Franklin referred to New Jersey as a keg tapped on both ends.
Yeah. I'm a Murphy. I'll take the keg anywhere.
Governor Lamont, we're talking about the Northeast Corridor and all these projects and and of course you're the gateway between New England and New York too.
Well, first, Tom, thanks to you and RPA. It's absolutely invaluable what you do. And Ray McGuire, you've got an amazing leader, good friend for many years. Look, the world is not necessarily divided into states. It also has major metropolitan centers. This is one of the most important metropolitan centers in the world. This is the financial capital of the world. And we're small but mighty up in Connecticut. And we're very proud to have strong neighbors like Kathy and Phil. And I want you to know two things. One, we're also good friends. And trial by fire, Phil and I were on the phone every day during the worst of COVID. COVID didn't know any borders. Look, for a state like Connecticut, rail is absolutely invaluable to us. For the first time in many, many years, we have tens of thousands of people moving into our state. There is no more room on our highways for that. I've got to get people in major metropolitan centers. We'll get the housing, and I got to get people moving back and forth. And we are old infrastructure, going back 100 years. And every one of those old bridges costs us 3, 4, 5 minutes in rails. It slows down to speed up. So if I can get that sped up, working with Kathy very closely, doesn't do me any good to speed up rail until Westchester County, then it slows up again. So we got to be joined like this in order to get that done. And that's our location is such a strategic advantage for us only if we make those investments. And I'll reiterate what Phil said, you know, old presidents sometimes get it done. Look at Joe Biden. Before him was Dwight Eisenhower. Two of our oldest presidents did the biggest investments. It's going to be transformative for our state and our region as long as we continue to work together with Mitchell Andrew taking the lead.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I have to point out, of course, Governor Hochul talking about Penn Station and with the Penn Access project coming down the pike soon, the Metro North and the New Haven line riders from your state will have an option of going to either Grand Central or the renovated and expanded Penn Station, just the same way Long Island commuters do today. And so we're starting to see the region become more knit together, which really creates more redundancy, capacity in the system, and improves everybody's lives. And a couple minutes a day for a commuter is a big, big deal. So we're really excited about all those projects. You mentioned housing. Maybe I'll start with you on this one, since Connecticut has actually been moving forward on some of those kinds of issues. I mean, first off, we all know the housing crisis, it continues to get worse. I think the metric we like to talk about is that in the last decade, our population increased by 6%, and the number of units in the region increased by about half that much. And so we've just got this imbalance that's growing between the demand and the need, with jobs and people wanting to move in, and yet we're not producing the kinds of housing that we need. At RPA in the 4th Regional Plan, we looked at a range of options, including accessory dwelling units, just allowing people to add that apartment above the garage or in the back of the house or something else like that. We estimated that basically without any new development, you could create 500,000 new homes across the region just by legalizing accessory dwelling units, which is something that Connecticut has been really leading with desegregate CT on. How did you manage to kind of get progress on an issue like that and start to build towards that?
We didn't build much housing for the last 30 or 40 years in this state. Now we're building it. There's extraordinary demand. You know, labor and business are stepping to the table to get forward right now. We're doubling down on the investments we're making, and it's tied to transportation. I mean, within 5 or 6 years, it'll be as close, Stamford will be as close to Grand Central and Penn Station. Bridgeport will be as close as Stamford is today. We're building out our housing going forward. We're doubling down on our incentives there right now. Our cities are a little small, and they're growing and expanded. They have much lower population than they did 30 or 50 years ago. So there's a lot of empty parking lots. There's a lot of commercial buildings we're converting over to residential, and thousands of people are moving there. Yeah. You mentioned Desegregate Connecticut. That's Sarah Bronin. I think I saw Sarah here a few minutes ago.
There she
Making
is.
sure that it's our major cities that are doing what they ought to do, and also our suburban towns, giving them the incentives to do the right thing.
Yeah.
I was mentioning, to Phil that, all along Shoreline East, they want more rail service. That's, Madison and Branford and such. And I say, great, you want more rail service? I'm with you. But I'm tired of subsidizing empty rail seats as well. You build more housing next to those train stations, I get you more rail service. I don't know if that's carrot and stick or just common sense. We're making progress.
Common sense, Governor Hochul, I think well describes what we thought were in a lot of your proposals in the budget, especially transit-oriented development, which, everything he's talking about. Of course, you've been overseeing an improvement in the transit system, but trying to build around those train stations, and we've come up against real opposition. How do you kind of see things moving forward?
Failure is not an option.
Yeah.
We have to move forward ambitiously. When we announced our plan for housing, the boldest plan launched by a governor in my lifetime to say we have a crisis, let's do something. RPA was instrumental in helping us come to the policies we promoted. I knew it was going to be tough. I knew it. And I didn't sign up for just easy, though. I mean, I knew that these are going to be difficult times, and changing people's mindsets and fears in the suburbs and fears in many of the boroughs, it's going to take some time, but I'm in this fight for the long term. And I said I wanted 800,000 units over the next decade. Okay, I'm in 5 months into my first term. I'm going to make this happen. And with your help and the enlightened business leaders and the community leaders, the elected officials and labor, we'll get it done. So ADUs should be in the no-brainer category. Absolutely. Office conversions.
Yes.
Midtown Manhattan, it could be a 24/7 community. Let's make there be incentives though, because it's wildly expensive to convert it. Let's acknowledge that reality. The FAR regulations, why we can't allow the same density we had in buildings back in the 50s and 60s. People like being close together. They don't need all that space. Let's bring in more, let's deal with that density issue. So 421A. Yeah, everybody thought that there'd be still people building the buildings with affordability without the incentives. I think we've had the experiment that demonstrated that just didn't work. I'd rather have 30% of something than 0 of something. And we're at 0 right now, so we have to go back at it. And breaking the mentality in the suburbs that growth is bad. I'm going to be out there once again talking about it, overcoming fears. I spent 14 years as a local official. I know how they think. But we're going to get to the point where we're going to start building and unleashing the capital, because New Jersey and Connecticut are eating our lunch when it comes to building houses. I was looking at everybody eating their lunch. So my point is, we can get this done with the political will, but also support of organizations like the RPA. We're just getting started.
Thank you, Governor, and the leadership that you've exhibited on this has been tremendous. And I really do want to say, I've said it many times, we've got your back here, and we're going to keep working with you on this. Governor Murphy, this is an area where New Jersey has more of a legacy and tradition of doing this and is actually growing. I mean, most of the new housing in this region is either being built in New York City or across the river in New Jersey.
Yeah, we have. So again, I'll be brief. New Jersey, you get a lot of stuff in exchange for what you pay in New Jersey. We're proud of top-ranked public education, healthcare system, quality of life, location second to none, but none of that comes free. So in housing, we continue to have a supply-demand imbalance. We have, notwithstanding higher interest rates, we've still got housing prices, both single-family and rental units now, at pretty significant supply-demand imbalances. And as Ray mentioned, New York City, we're not at that level in terms of rent, but we're not a cheap state. So affordability for us is, so we put in place last year, it'll hopefully be in place forever and always, a massive property tax rebate program for both homeowners and renters. Mm-hmm. And the early returns are really outstanding. Depending on how much money you make, it's means tested. We've knocked property taxes back at least a decade for a whole lot of folks, and for many more, a half a decade. Build more affordable housing units. We've got a $300+ million plan to finish building out all of the currently approved affordable housing units. And thirdly, as Kathy said, transit-oriented development continues to be a big deal for us, which invariably includes a significant amount of residential components to that. That's a really smart and popular thing in Jersey that we're trying to do as much of as we can.
Yeah, thank you for your support. And of course, we do also have a state plan in New Jersey to help us figure out where that growth can go. Yeah, which has been very good.
Thank you.
Well, let me now start with you. Maybe we've got about 5 more minutes, so I'll just do a last question on climate and resilience. And obviously, I know this is a personal issue for you, Governor. All of you have been working on this and promoting offshore wind and really trying to make that transition to a sustainable, renewable energy sources while we decarbonize our transportation system, our buildings, and other things. This is tough. They're trade-offs that have to be made. But can I ask, where do you think we can make, and I'll start with you, Governor Murphy, the most progress in this battle to save the planet?
So I mentioned a few minutes ago, Tom, that we're the most densely populated American state. There was a study done probably 4 or 5 years ago that put New Jersey and South Florida as the most exposed parts of our country to sea level rise and climate change. So this is not an option for us. You can't get a gentleman's sea on climate change if you're in New Jersey. So we've got a massive, as Kathy does, a massive offshore wind initiative, huge solar programs and initiatives, including community solar, which we find to be, particularly in urban settings, a game changer. We're going to allow our nukes to stay open responsibly to the end of their useful life. We've now finally enacted the nation's strongest environmental justice law, so that our urban communities, which have long been the disproportionate victims of climate change, electric vehicles is a huge push. When I got to office, you guys will appreciate this, we were number 9 in the nation in terms of number of vehicles and number 47 in charging stations. And I said, folks, that has to change. And that can't be the 9 goes down. So we'll put a massive amount of investment, again, thanks to Mitch for federal help there. We've got something called Rebuild by Design, which is going to protect Hoboken, which is one of the most exposed communities in our state. It's a world-class. It's borrowed from the Dutch. When you're worried about sea level rise, go to the folks who live under the sea level and learn from what they've done. I could go on, but this is another everything, everywhere, all at once for us.
Thanks for saying. I have to say, with Rebuild by Design, I got to give a shout out to former HUD Secretary Sean Donovan, who oversaw that for the Obama administration. We were proud to partner with that too. Governor Lamont, of course, Connecticut in some ways, like the offshore wind is, and the industry that's coming up there on your coast is tying in with advanced mechanics and really a transformation that's happening in Connecticut, a state with a wonderful history as an industrial state that, didn't have it for a generation or so, but really a lot's been coming back. So in some ways it feels like these things are coming together in the state of Connecticut.
Tom, they are coming together. Look, this is one more reason why you have a regional planning association. The environment, clean air, clean water, they know no borders.
Yeah.
Kathy and I work very closely on Long Island Sound. And to the point about energy, what are we doing going forward, especially when you had $5 a gallon gasoline? I want clean, renewable energy, and I got to make it affordable. And those graphs are beginning to merge right now. We've done wind power. I went out to bid along with Massachusetts and Rhode Island and New York. We got relatively low prices, made it competitive. Like Phil, we've doubled down on our nuclear power, extended that on a power purchase agreement. Massachusetts is going to be bringing down hydropower. So I think we're going to have our clean energy future, and you've got to move transportation from the internal combustion engine to electric. We're going to need more reliable, affordable electricity over the next 30 years. That's probably one of the biggest hurdles we've got to overcome, and I think the renewables are getting us there.
That's great. And Governor Hochul, of course, in New York, you've been pushing this, especially you mentioned hydropower, and you've been pushing that, cap and invest in the latest round. So how do you see New York kind of responding to these needs?
We have to respond. I mean, I just reflect on what Ray said in his remarks, that history will be looking at us. I'm aware of that. How we meet this moment will define our nation for the next 2 generations. So we have to be aggressive. I'm proud that in our last budget, we took on these challenges. All buildings will be electrified in the state of New York. All vehicles will be electric by 2035. We started cap and invest with a rebate program because we have to make sure that we don't lose sight of affordability. We can't scare people with these changes, but we have a path. But we have to make sure that our grid will have what is necessary as we make these transitions. So electrifying homes is great, buildings, but if we don't have the electric power ready to go, then we're in trouble. So hydroelectric power coming from Hydro-Quebec, wind and solar coming in from the Catskills. We're aggressive about that. I just announced 8 new renewable projects to electrify 180 houses in the downstate area just a couple weeks ago. So we're being held to our own standards and numbers and dates. So we have a team that is aggressively going out there and holding up our end of our moral responsibility to future generations, and I'm really excited about it.
That's so great. Well, thank you so much. I know, Governor Murphy, you've got to catch a plane, and we've got to wrap up, is what I understand. I want to say just in closing that to hear you all talk about these issues and see how you're all working together and you're all advancing these issues is really inspiring and helpful for us. Because again, at Regional Plan Association, as you said, the climate doesn't care about political boundaries. Transportation, the Gateway Tunnel is to connect 2 states, but it's one economy. Our housing market is a regional housing market. And so when people can't find, when they're priced out of one place, they just move on to the next one, and they don't really care or know which political jurisdiction it is. And so it's so encouraging for us at Regional Plan Association to have 3 governors who are working together on these issues and whose visions line up. So thank you again for everything that you're doing and for joining us today. It's been great. Thank you, Governor. I really mean it. Governor, he wants a quick picture of the 4 of us. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here.
One more.
Oh, all right.
Thanks, man.
Thank you. Okay.
George.
All right. Now, to get on to the keynote presentation, I'm really delighted to introduce Deputy Mayor Sheena Wright, who is going to introduce our final speaker. Sheena, thank you for being here today. We're so glad you could join us. Take it away.
Thanks so much, Tom. Good afternoon, everyone. I am First Deputy Mayor Sheena Wright, and I'm very excited to introduce Mitch, Senior Advisor and Infrastructure Coordinator to the President of the United States, Mitch Landrieu. That's a lot. That's a big title. I want to say, first, though, I want to make a couple of remarks. I want to thank my good friend, Ray McGuire, who's such really a beacon for the city and such a public servant in all the things that you've done. Very happy that you are the new chair. And Tom, I feel like we are related. Sheena Wright Tower, we have to do an ancestry.com. But grateful for your leadership and the Regional Plan Association and the great work that you do. We got to give it up for the governors that we heard from. But this next part of the program is about the mayors. And I want to say a few words about the important work that mayors do in getting the job done around infrastructure. And certainly this administration, the Biden administration, is full of former mayors, including Secretary Buttigieg. And I want to thank him for our very own Deputy Mayor of Operations, Mira Joshi, who is here. To the Director of Public Engagement, Steve Benjamin, another former mayor. Simply put, as Mayor Adams likes to say, local leaders know how to get stuff done. I just want to say a couple of words that Tom has allowed us to communicate about some of the work that we are doing in the Adams administration. We have 3 guiding principles. How can we build more effectively, more efficiently, and more equitably? And that process started by first doing something revolutionary in government. We actually got everyone to the table and produced real actionable next steps with our Capital Reform Task Force and our City of Yes. Many of you in this room were a part of those collaborative efforts that are producing significant results. We formed a Capital Process Reform Task Force where we brought together stakeholders all along the spectrum of the capital process: industry, labor, MWBE, government agencies, the comptroller, and some who have relationships with RPA. And there was a simple question that we put on the table: what can we be doing better? The result of the task force was a path forward. We were advocating and continue to advocate for common sense legislation to help our city. That legislation includes embracing alternative project delivery tools, such as progressive design build and construction manager build. Can I get an amen, right? These are common sense things that that will shave years off the construction process and save taxpayers money for the projects that we do in the city of New York. We are continuing to advocate for increasing the MWBE small purchase threshold for city contracts to $1.5 million. It will have a huge impact on our city, on equity and on inclusion. We are not where we need to be as it relates to MWBEs. And we're also looking for immediate policy changes that we can do ourselves. And the Capital Reform Task Force laid out a suite of things, and we are doing them. We are improving scoping and planning, cutting down on redundant reviews and the project initiation and procurement process, streamlining change order processes, all of these things, because our mayor has really tasked us to really lean into government excellence and making sure that we're looking at these processes and systems that just don't make sense and doing what we need to do. In addition to that, we've embraced being the idea of a city of yes. We are very grateful for the governor's gold plan around housing. It matches our ambition as we've laid out earlier in the year. And we are, in our administration, we are really leaning in across the spectrum to saying yes to developing in my backyard, yes to more housing in my neighborhood, yes to being more inclusive. And it's with that spirit that allowed us to charge forward and eliminate archaic zoning restrictions and reducing minimum parking requirements to allow for housing. Now, these all sound like very, kind of pedestrian, tangible, maybe small tactical items, but these are the enablers that enable us to really do big things in terms of having significant progress in our building process. So just in 16 months that we've been in office, we have really announced some groundbreaking capital projects, including last month, we announced the Governor's Island Climate Center project. Yes, we are very proud of that. Spanning across 3 administrations, we're pushing it over the finish line. It's a state-of-the-art, $700 million, 400,000 square foot campus dedicated to researching and developing innovative climate solutions that will be scaled across New York City and the world. It will create 7,000 permanent jobs, 2,000 construction jobs, and $1 billion in economic impact. It will be breaking ground in 2025 and complete in 3 short years. And just this week, we announced a $500 million investment in Broadway Junction in partnership with the MTA. Thank you, Jano. This $400 million from the MTA will be for accessibility upgrades at Broadway Junction and an additional almost $100 million investment to activate underutilized public spaces. This will generate $11 billion in economic impact over the next 30 years, including opportunities for local businesses, nonprofits, and MWBEs. So much more that we are doing, but we can't do any of it without our partnership with the federal government. We are very grateful for the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and the Inflation Reduction Act. These are once-in-a-generation opportunities to secure real dollars to transform our transportation system and climate change infrastructure. And we are not shy. We have been aggressive in applying for grants, and through the efforts of this administration, led by Deputy Mayor Joshi and team, we've already been awarded over $300 million in competitive funding for the city of New York. And these dollars are going to go a long way. We still have more applications pending, so we want to keep the money coming. Thank you very much. And these are practical, tangible investments that meet the needs of all of us. And we want to continue to think bigger. We've got many things in the pipeline, the BQE and others. But again, none of this could be done without the partnership of organizations like the Regional Planning Association and certainly the federal government. I want to just get to the actual introduction of Mitch. As a former mayor of New Orleans, he is proof that not all heroes wear capes. And he was our mayor when we all witnessed the challenges of rebuilding Louisiana after the Hurricane Katrina. And to remake the infrastructure for his city has put him very squarely with a lived experience that we think is so critical in the role that he currently has. So I would like to introduce to you the Senior Advisor and Infrastructure Coordinator to the President of the United States, Mitch Landrieu.
Lord have mercy. How's everybody doing? Good. Y'all have heard a lot of words today. I am a really smart politician. So I want you to know that as one of 9 children, who's 5th, that's used to try to talk when other people don't want to listen, you guys have at whatever you want to do while I'm trying to talk. The other thing that I realize is that if I was still mayor of New Orleans, it's Friday afternoon, it's 2 o'clock, I would ordain that you don't have to go back to work. But no, that's the good news. The bad news is that I'm standing in between you and happy hour, which is not a good place for mayors to be. The third thing I want to say is last night I was with Spike Lee. He's my friend. He had tennis shoes on that looked like he was for the Knicks. Y'all talk about that. I'm looking for some of that Knicks magic. And y'all reminded me today when y'all were talking about John Zuccotti about the 70s. And I remember Walt Frazier. And I remember Dave DeBuscher. And I remember that team. Y'all remember that? Earl the Pearl? Yep. Willis Reed was from Louisiana. And, of course, the great Bill Bradley. And y'all brought back those memories to me. But what you did bring back to me when you were talking about that was my dad was the president of the U.S. Conference of Mayors in 1976 when this great state was threatening to go bankrupt. And he, on behalf of the United States Conference of Mayors, which he was the chairman of that year, got together with all the mayors. And for those of you that were involved in this will remember they all came here and worked very closely with the leadership in New York. And I remember hearing stories about this great place from the time that I was a kid. I love being in the New York area. My wife Cheryl is with me today, and we just are overjoyed to be with you and to listen to the things that have been said here today. I want to again welcome all the elected officials that were here. The governors didn't have a plane to catch. They just really have gotten tired of talking to me about all of this stuff. So I want to thank you for having me, and there are. It's really great to be here on behalf of President Biden, who I know you will agree with me is doing a great job. And there are so many friends. Yeah, thank you. There's so many friends in this room that I would be remiss if I didn't spend a minute just talking about the leadership of the three governors that left: Governor Hochul, Governor Murphy, Governor Lamont. Friends for a very, very long time, but their leadership in each of their respective states and the kind of regional cooperation and collaboration that they display day in and day out, with your help, obviously, is really what makes this the most vibrant place on earth and the most indispensable and economic center, really, in modern times, almost in the world. So congratulations to all of you. I want to just reiterate to you, it's been said many, many times. Kate, you said it when you started. Ray, you said it when you were talking. The governor said it when they were talking, but it's worth repeating and getting into your bones that nothing is possible without regional cooperation and coordination. And that means strong partnerships between the federal government, the state government, local governments. But if you have that, as the president has said, anything is possible. That is perhaps one of the most important lessons that I learned when we were rebuilding New Orleans after Katrina. I was honored to serve in public office in Louisiana for over 30 years, 16 years as a state legislator, 6 years as the state's lieutenant governor, and I had the great honor to hold my dream job for 8 years, serving my hometown as mayor of the city of New Orleans, literally the best job I have ever and will ever have. Now, do not tell President Biden that I just said that. All right, but look, during that time, as was mentioned by the deputy mayor during her introduction, we in Louisiana had our backs up against the wall. After the federal levees failed, an infrastructure failure, by the way, we were 80% underwater, $150 billion in damages, 1,800 of our brothers and sisters and mothers and fathers were killed. 1 million people were displaced. We had 1 million homes damaged, 250,000 were destroyed. Communities were torn apart, scattered to the winds. Pain, fear, a terrible sense of loss, and a very, very deep and profound sense of hopelessness. But then something really miraculous happened. People from all over the country and many people in this room and the world came to our aid. And I cannot tell you how much the people of New Orleans thank you for all of the work that you guys have done. We have tried to repay the favor. I hope that we have. But the people of New Orleans, through tragedy and triumph, Katrina, Rita, Ike, Gustav, the national recession, the BP oil spill, fires, floods, they never gave up and they never stopped fighting. And we did something along the way. Kate, you said it earlier. We did something special. We took a moment. We stayed in suspended pain. And we decided that we were not going to build it back like it was before the storm. But we were going to find the courage. We were going to find the fortitude. We were going to find the vision to build it better, more resilient, more fair, more equitable, imagining not just what it was, but how it could be and how the beautiful city of New Orleans should be. It was a story of resurrection. It was a story of redemption that seemed so improbable, almost impossible 18 years ago. But everything that we accomplished in the city's recovery, in what might be the largest rebuilding project in our nation's history, relatively short history, was a result of deep partnerships. My friend Sean Donovan is here. On behalf of President Obama, as Secretary of HUD, OMB helped lead the effort on the federal government with me, and we wouldn't have been there without you. So, Sean, thank you for all of your help. I love you. We had federal, state, local government, not-for-profits, philanthropy. We had the private sector all putting something in so that we could all take something and build something better out. One team, one fight, one voice, one mission. That was our mantra. And so I take those lessons and that attitude into the current role that I have on behalf of the president as his senior advisor for implementing, yes, this once-in-a-generation opportunity to rebuild America. I have hope for our nation because what I have seen in the last 18 months, the partnerships that we have built, and because President Biden and your federal government with your tax dollars are showing up in real time with real money as a ready and willing partner. President Biden comes to work every day. He's got three things he wants to do. He wants to unite the country because it's only together that we can do great things. He wants to restore the soul of America because we can be the more perfect union we have always aspired to be if we let freedom and democracy and decency prevail. And as importantly, we can build an economy from the bottom up and the middle out, not the top down, because no American, not one American, should ever be limited to where they start in life. And that is that pillar that I want to talk about today, because on all economic accounts, on all independent analyses, we are moving in the right direction, headed for strong, stable, and steady growth. It is really remarkable when you take a step back to think about where we are and where we fit in the sweep of the entire history of the United States. Ned Lamont talked about it just a second ago. Our country's greatest comebacks have been driven by massive federal partnerships in the wake of some disruption, some crisis, some disaster. Think about it for a minute. Lincoln started the construction of the Transcontinental Railroad during the Civil War. Roosevelt's New Deal Work Progress Administration aimed to move us out of the Great Depression, building major projects like the Hoover Dam, LaGuardia Airport, which, by the way, the president said is looking good. Y'all eat on that for just a minute. To the Robert F. Kennedy Bridge, what used to be the Triborough Bridge that connects Manhattan, Queens, and the Bronx. Eisenhower launched the interstate system during the Cold War that better connects us. And now, in the wake of a global pandemic and its major economic shock, President Biden has woven together a series of sweeping legislation that, in their totality, exceed all of those moments. The president passed the American Rescue Plan, the most aggressive recovery package since Roosevelt's New Deal. We got shots in arms. We saved small businesses. We protected investments in public safety in our cities. And we drove the strongest two-year job growth ever. We passed the largest investment in infrastructure in our lifetime, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a minute. We passed the CHIPS Act and the Science Act. We have the largest investment in innovation, manufacturing, research in American history. Just look at Micron's investment right upstate, $100 billion. And we have the Inflation Reduction Act, the most transformative investment in building a clean energy economy and combating climate change ever. Put it all together, this is the president's Invest in America plan, to invest in ourselves, in our communities. And as the president has said many times, when we do that, you know what? We win. All of us win. And we're going to do it by spending taxpayer dollars wisely and well and leveraging private sector investments. You know what? We got the receipts. And I want to give a couple of them to you today. This Investing in America agenda is working. Just this morning, we learned that we've added another 250,000 jobs last month, on top of the 12 million jobs the president has already created. An unemployment rate at 3.4%, the lowest level in 50 years. Inflation is slowing down. Amen. I get you an amen on that one. Inflation is slowing, down 40% since last year. We have more to do. And this recovery has been the most robust and equitable recovery in our history. Black unemployment is at its lowest rate ever. Small businesses are booming. There are over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs, many of which don't require a college degree, which means things that we're making things in America again. And this region, this very region, is seeing a manufacturing boom in real time, in clean energy, in rail, and in semiconductor manufacturing. It makes our economy stronger for years to come. And guess what? We're just getting started. We're just getting out of the blocks. After years of dead ends, after years of broken promises, President Biden brought Republicans and Democrats together to actually get something done. We have all talked a lot of talking going on about Infrastructure Week. But this time, in this moment, in this place, we're actually breaking ground. We're starting to turn dirt. We're ushering in an infrastructure decade. And all I see is possibility ahead. You see, the foundation of a strong economy is literally a country's infrastructure. It is the cornerstone upon which everything else rests. We've finally got a president who's putting his money where his mouth is. And it's no surprise to me. He has been remarkably consistent over his entire career. He started off as a local guy, but when he first ran for the Senate many, many years ago, I want you to think about this. Let me quote him. "It's time for the federal government to take action to jumpstart our economic engine and to help us build robust, long-term economic growth. One factor that has exacerbated the weakened economy is the neglect of these economic components that we call infrastructure, our roads, our bridges, our dock facilities, our water systems," close quote. He wrote this not in 2022. He didn't write this in 2012 or 2002, but in July of 1992. Now, that is a consistent vision that real leadership talks about. Over 30 years ago, he proposed the Infrastructure Growth and Employment Act to pump tens of billions of dollars into public works projects in communities large and small, urban and rural. And now, he and we together are seeing that vision through. We have already pushed out $210 billion out of the door for roads, for bridges, for airports, for ports, for waterways, sewer systems, clean air, safe water, high-speed internet, and clean energy infrastructure, all moving out of the door. And you know what? We're touching every part of the country. We have begun repair on over 69,000 miles of roadway and 4,600 bridges that Governor Lamont was talking about. We've funded over 3,000 new clean transit and school buses. We've got over 25,000 projects all across the country with funding underway. We're hitting the ground running right here in your backyards. Let me give you a couple examples that you might know about, that might be familiar to you. It's the Walk Bridge in Newark, Connecticut, a choke point on the Northwest Corridor, Northeast Corridor, which will soon break ground. It's projects like the Hunts Point Terminal Produce Market in the Bronx. Have a little bit of that, a little home cooking. In Hudson County, New Jersey, we're funding drainage improvements on approximately 2 miles of Route 7. Look at the new airports that we talked about a little while ago, port investments, water system repairs, and repairing lead pipes so kids don't have to be drinking poisonous water when they're not supposed to. And then let's talk about access to knowledge, which is the great equalizer. And the president wants to level the playing field. Let's talk about high-speed internet. A little girl should not have to be sitting in the back of her mama's car outside of McDonald's trying to do her homework, because that's where she can get high-speed internet. So that's why we're investing $65 billion in making sure that every human being in the United States has access to internet. And now let's talk about something that is near and dear to all of your hearts. We're making the largest investment ever in public transit. That is ever. We're going to make public transit safer, more accessible, more reliable. We're supporting new lines like the expansion, as the governor mentioned, of the 2nd Avenue subway to 125th Street to improve transit access in East Harlem. Along with the, okay, well, go ahead. I like it. Along with the hundreds of clean transit buses across the tri-state area. We've been thrilled to see that MTA's ridership has been coming back, and we got to keep making that happen. Public transit has and will continue to be the success, of course, of this region. And of course, some of our largest investments sit along the Northeast Corridor, where we're putting in the largest funding since the creation of Amtrak. Steve Gardner is here, who runs Amtrak, one of the most important people in the country. Steve, and we're counting on you to get this done. Give him a round of applause. 2,200 trains run across the Northeast Corridor each day. In case you have not heard this, my boss, let me see if I can do this way, is a train guy. He loves trains. And the Northeast Corridor is the busiest rail corridor in the United States of America, from the Portal North Bridge and the Gateway program to the East River Tunnel from Sawtooth and Dock Bridge. These projects, go ahead. The president knows about y'all. These projects are going to make your commutes easier, your lives better, and they're going to make this region's economy hum. And the centerpiece of this entire thing is the Gateway program. So Chris, Kalori, stand up so they can see you, because he's the other most important person around. Y'all make sure these two guys stay happy and healthy, okay? Now, while past administrations tried to shut this vision down, President Biden, with all of your delegations, your senators, your congressmen, your mayors, everybody like a dog on a bone, is committed to getting this done. And we are going to rebuild the existing tunnel. We're going to build a new second tunnel. And when all is said and done, I think that this will be the single largest investment in a project that is funded by the bipartisan infrastructure law in this country, and therefore in the history of a country. And it's critical to It's critical to transforming the Northeast Corridor, because we need to increase speeds, add capacity, improve reliability and safety so that folks can get to their families without delay. And as the president reminds me every time I see him, making the Northeast Corridor better is critical to getting folks out of their cars and onto trains, which is better for the climate. But here's the thing. It's also about jobs. Jobs, jobs. The Hudson River Tunnel project will lead to over 70,000 good-paying jobs over its lifetime. Good-paying union jobs that do not require a college degree, and we are not going to leave anybody behind. That is what we mean when we say a blue-collar blueprint to rebuild America. And with the partnership of so many people in this room, we are finally moving forward, and we're going to get it done. Earlier this year, as the governor mentioned, we announced the funding and completion of the concrete casing under the Hudson Yards. Work was started there. Thank you. Work was started there in 2013, but it stalled, and our team has gotten it back on track. And I'm telling you now that I expect to be back here with the president, if he lets me come with him, for more announcements on that project. But listen, we're a long way away from cutting the ribbon, and it's going to take a lot more money, time, sacrifice, collaboration, cooperation, and leadership from everybody in this room. And I am fully confident, after the discussions that I've had with the governors, that Governor Hochul, Governor Murphy, Senators Schumer and Gillibrand, Booker and Menendez, the congressional delegation, everybody is going to be here to help. But, as was said earlier, our ambition should not just be to finally get it done. We have to push higher. We need to move with speed. And we have to prove that we can do big things in America again. You have our word that we're going to do what it takes. And as the president reminds me almost every time I see him, hurry the hell up. It's pretty much all he says to me today. So we've got to be faster, and we're going to have to innovate to fast-track transportation, transmission projects, clean energy, high-speed internet, and more. And we're currently going to do this with executive action, but we're also working on the Hill for bipartisan permitting reform to get things done that maintain environmental protections while enabling the speed that we need. And it's not just permitting. We have to accelerate the pace by which the federal, state, local governments, and the private sector deliver infrastructure projects to fully maximize the benefits of these investments. Decades-long project timelines will not get us there. For the first time in generations, we now have the money. We have to hold ourselves to a higher standard to deliver on time, on task, and on budget. We are going to prove that we can do big things again, and it is going to require massive change. But, as you know, all of you, from your recovery after the Superstorm Sandy and the 2008 recession, change is hard for folks. I want to tell you a little story as I close. Shortly after Katrina, when we were rescuing people in boats, people were in their houses, 17 feet of water. There was a woman who got in a boat that I was in the lower Ninth Ward. When you're riding in those boats trying to help people get out, I saw a woman holding garbage bags stuffed with what they could carry because that's all they had. In the blistering heat, most people were wearing T-shirts. They were floating in the water in tire tubes, pawing the water without oars, fleeing for their lives. So in the lower Ninth Ward at one house, there was a little lady who got in the boat that I was in. I helped her get in, but she was holding a clock. That was all she had. And I said, ma'am, what are you doing with that clock? She recognized me. She said, this is how we talk in New Orleans. She said, Mitch, baby. She said, Mitch, baby, I done lost everything. I lost my house, everything I have. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know where I'm going. But I can tell you one thing. I know what time it is. Y'all can see that. Y'all know that's a true story, right? She was holding on to the one thing and the only thing she knew. I remember that story, and it's so real to me because it's the first thing we do when we get into trauma, when we get into crisis. It's to grab on that thing we know, and we don't let it go because it makes us feel secure. But Kate, you said it earlier today. That is not always the right thing to do, just to get back to the place that we had, because you don't know whether it was good or bad. I've mentioned that lady in countless speeches and saying why in recovery you should not hold on to the past. Sure, it feels good in that instance, but it is not the right choice. At this moment, in this time, we have a unique opportunity to reach into the future, to build an economy from the bottom up and the middle out, but only if we seize the moment. Only if we seize the moment. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't take just 1 minute to talk about what's happening on the Hill right now. All of that possibility, all of the progress that awaits us could be wiped out in an instant because of extreme Republicans in the House of Representatives who have us now sitting on a razor's edge in a manufactured crisis. We are not a deadbeat nation. We're going to pay our bills. It's time to stop the brinksmanship and prevent an act of default, which would have devastating consequences for our economy and the American people. The only practical path is to avoid this default, for Congress to get about their business and do what is right, to do what it has done multiple times, including under President Trump, to suspend the debt limit without conditions. There is no constituency in America that supports threatening to kill millions of jobs unless the VA is gutted, or we lay off rail inspectors or air traffic controllers, except apparently some folks with the House Republicans. We need to get about the business of governing this country. I will close with this. As I said before, change is hard for folks, but all of you know change is possible. I hope, because of our experiences after Katrina in New Orleans and after Sandy here in this region, that's what we learned, because we know that's what's possible. When we invest in America, as the president has always said, we can win. When the federal government shows up as a partner and we work together, we can do big things. This president, President Joseph Biden, has delivered for the people of America by investing in America. So now we have the way. We must demonstrate that we also have the will to do big things again. In times of immense change, the people of this nation have always risen to the occasion, because where there is a will, there is a way. I know we can. I know we must. I know when we do it, the people of this tri-state region and the United States will have nothing, as the president says, but possibility ahead, because Joe Biden is investing in America. We believe our best is yet to come. Thank you all very much, and God bless you.
Thank you so much, Mitch Landreth, for those inspiring words. Really, I can't imagine a better way to finish off the 2023 Assembly than with that message. So I want to say, just as a final parting thing, I want to thank once again all of our partners and supporters who are here, and especially one group that hasn't gotten a shout out yet today, the staff of Regional Plan Association, who are so amazing. Kate and I are very, very fortunate to get here. And somewhere, Lacey Cotter deserves a drink, because she's the one who pulled this together. Lacey, where are you? I can't see you. Is she in the room? She's somewhere out there. Lacey, congratulations. Thanks to everybody for being here. Have a wonderful rest of the day and weekend, and let's go build some infrastructure.